Greatly appreciate that. Thank you. We have a wonderful speaker lined up. We have a wonderful day. People have been working for quite some time. I want to thank all of you who have helped in any way, and I'll go into that a little bit more later. But Bill Watson, who started this flag thing, I just love it, and I hope you do as much as I do. Bill, thank you for all your work getting those flags out. I'll bring them out and also. It's just made our whole display very, very special. Okay, we're going to start our day with opening prayer by Jim England, who served in the Army from 1946 to 1947. He's done our prayer for several years, and he's 90 years young, and we're proud to have him here doing that for us. Jim?
I'm certainly proud to pay tribute to all of you veterans, all of them all over the world that served in all time. Dear God Almighty, our sons and daughters, pride of our nation, have committed themselves to a struggle to preserve our republic, our faith, and our civilization, to set free a suffering humanity. Lead them, Lord, give them strength in their arms, stoutness in their hearts, steadfastness in their faith by grace. They fight not for love, they fight for love. They fight for liberty. They fight to let justice arise. They yearn for the end of the battle to return home to their loved ones. With your blessings, they will prevail over unholy forces of greed and racial arrogance. We pray they will lead us to world unity. Many will not return home, but we pray they are with you for all eternity. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
We stand if able as the colors are brought forward, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem. This is Chuck Arkovich, our Honor Guard, Marine Corps, 1963 to 1966.
Follow me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the national anthem.
Okay, thank you very much. You all sing along. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed as the twilight passed sweet, whose first lights and bright stars through the perilous fight. For the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets glitter upon the air. They proved through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land and of the free
It gives me great pleasure at this time to tell you a little bit about our guest speaker. This gentleman was highly recommended as a speaker, as he had spoken in Sun City Center. And he responded very quickly to my request for him to come here. He was here a week ago and became familiar with our park and what we were looking for and what we do. And he's been here early, meeting and watching you all come in and hoping to meet most of you. Our speaker today is Sergeant Theodore James Van Allen, Jr. And I'm assuming by what he's giving his bio that his nickname is Bullwinkle. He was born and raised in New Jersey, where he was working for New Jersey Bell Telephone as a lineman when he was drafted into the United States Army in April of 1968. He was assigned to Fort Dix, New Jersey for his basic and advanced infantry training. He volunteered for scout dog training and was assigned to Fort Benning, Georgia, where he was paired with Warlock and underwent 20 weeks of intense training, including off-leash, a new type of canine deployment tactic. Scout dog teams walk point for combat units. In May of 1969, Team Warlock was assigned to the 48th Scout Dog 196 LIB at LZ Baldy south of Da Nang. With 30-plus missions, not one American was killed with Team Warlock walking point. Hundreds of enemy KIAs and prisoners were taken due to their efforts. Team Warlock had 27 confirmed combat kills. When Van Allen received his honorable discharge in March of 1970, he had received the Combat Infantry Badge, the Bronze Star, the Vietnam Campaign and Service Medal, and NDSM. Returning to civilian life, he resumed his career with New Jersey Bell and became telecommunications engineer and manager. Retired from Bell Atlantic in 1997, he continues to work in the telecom industry, including several international companies, including Hitachi. He has authored several engineering manuals and publications. He's married to his wife, has been married to his wife Karen for 21 years and has 2 children and 4 grandchildren. They enjoy skiing, tennis, and hiking, which has taken them to mountains throughout North America and Europe. He's currently writing a book of poems about the summer of '69, his time in the jungle with Warlock and the men of the 196. Would you please welcome Ted James Van Allen, Jr.
Good afternoon, folks. And I would like to thank Cindy and Phil for the invite and the honor to speak to this group. It's become a kind of a life in itself. Just recently they dedicated a new war memorial over in Sun City Center, and they chose to have a war dog represented too. And through a process, Warlock was selected, and I got selected too because I held on to the other end of the leash. If you go over there, it's on South Pebble Beach Boulevard, and Warlock is in bronze. Now, those of you who don't know the history of Vietnam, there were dogs deployed throughout the war. Recently in a Vietnam magazine, they came out and said that they estimate that over 10,000 lives were saved with the deployment of dogs. They did that by examining casualty rates of missions with and without dogs. Now, there were 3 basic types of dogs in Vietnam. There were sentry dogs, which were security around bases, tracker dogs, which were generally black labs, which were used to chase the enemy down after we had contact with them, and then scout dogs. Scout dogs is what Warlock was, and I was a scout dog handler. We would walk point for infantry units. The dog would alert on airborne scent. He also would find booby traps and mines if they had human scent, but unlike the dogs of today, he was not trained to smell explosives. Now, Warlock was not like the dogs you see in the military today. They are bred by corporations, pre-trained and given to the military. Warlock came from a sheep rancher in Wyoming. And why he would ever give up a dog like this, the only thing I could figure out was he must have liked mutton. And he didn't want him on the farm. So I met Warlock at Fort Benning. Despite luck of the draw, I got matched with this animal. So after a brief period of time, the Army had found out there was a problem, even with good scout dogs, is that when you're in the jungle, if the wind is blowing at your back, the dog will not smell the enemy until you're in the ambush. It's just the way it is. And many of your hunters, you know that. You always want the wind in your face. So the idea was to train the dogs to get way out in front of us. Now, I generally walk 30 yards in front of the infantry units I was with, not because I was trying to win the Medal of Honor, but there was just a problem with noise discipline with infantry units. And the other problem was the bad guys didn't want to kill one guy and his dog. They wanted they wanted a platoon, they wanted a company. So getting out in front was an advantage, but then by getting the dog further out, it gave us a greater advantage. The trouble is, in the jungle, you can't see a dog when he's out in front of you. And we're in the jungle half the time. So they developed a transmitter to go on the dog's back. And what we did is we taught the dogs to sit when they got an alert. The transmitter had a tumbler in it, and it would send a beeping noise back to my helmet, and then I would know he was there. And then I would use the dog whistle to pull him back. We trained them to stay about 50 yards in front of us. So we're great at Fort Benning. We got to Vietnam. It was useless. The humidity, the weather, it just didn't work. So even without that, I would still use Warlock off leash. But after 20 weeks of training, and how many Air Force vets do we have? Air Force. I always have to ask you about this. We're going to ship to Vietnam now. It's 15 dog handlers and about 150 dogs get on a transport in Georgia. And we go to Delaware, stay overnight. We go to Alaska, stay, go to Japan, we get to Vietnam. I thought the war was going to be over by the time I got there. We unloaded Pontoon Air Base, and Warlock, who anybody in this room could come up and pet. He was that friendly a dog, even though he was a German Shepherd. I took him out of the crate and was walking him around the base, and there were Vietnamese workers he had never seen before. And he almost dislocated my shoulder trying to get this guy. He just wanted to tear him apart. There was just something about their smell or their sound or whatever. But it was behavior I did not discourage because I figured it was going to be an advantage at some point. We then went to an in-country training area to get the dogs and us used to the weather. And it was outside of Benoit base. It was an area that was supposedly friendly. It wasn't within the Army base. And they would set decoys out in the bushes and stuff, which were kids. They were paid to do it. So I'm with the sergeant, and Warlock and I are walking, and it's wide open, and Warlock sits. So the sergeant looks at me and he says, "There's nothing there, keep going." So I use my dog whistle, I bring him back. He goes back up, he sits in the exact same spot. So now the sergeant's going to bust my balls. He's going, "Hey, new guy." That isn't exactly what he said. You guys know what FNG is, right? There's nothing, and then all of a sudden, it's the first time I ever heard an AK-47. There was a sniper out there, and he took a shot at me and the sergeant, but they missed, and we got out of there. We then get on, deployed up to LZ Baldy, which is a pile of rocks, and we have some slides for later, south of Da Nang. We would generally be out for 5 days at a time. And the reason for that was the dogs could not take the heat. And I had it a lot better than the regular grunts in that aspect. They were out there 60, 70 days at a time. We would get on helicopters, fly out, pull our mission, and get flown back in. Get a couple days off, go back on a duty roster, and fly us back out. Excuse me one moment. Now, my very first mission, I got tested. Warlock was up to it, but I was not. And I just want to warn you, this is not a bedtime story, the rest of the story. So, we got flown out to an infantry company that had seen a new village go up in an area where it's a free fire zone. Our orders were, this is where our orders every day when we went out. Find the enemy, kill the enemy. That's what we did. That was our job. They had been in a village, they had burned it down. So we're going to go back to see if anybody was coming back to see if there was anything that was left. We were walking up a hill. Now, remember, my backup guy is about 30 yards behind me, and we got up to a plateau, and it was a cornfield, which is the only one I ever saw in Vietnam. I thought it was back on my uncle's farm. And then we went up a hill, and it was all cleared out. You could see where they had cleared it out. They were trying to make a base or something. And warlocks started to alert. But I could see really far. I couldn't see anything. And as I came up on the rise of the hill, there were two guys bent over, looking away from me. By the rules of engagement, I could have just killed them instantly. But, you know, I raised as a Catholic. You know, you don't shoot people in the back. You know, you gotta, you know, it's that good Catholic upbringing. So I didn't see, they weren't in uniform, and I couldn't see a weapon. I thought maybe they're farmers or whatever. So I continued to walk towards them. Then one of them heard me. He turned in an instant, and he had a weapon. He pulled the trigger on the weapon, and it misfired. Mine didn't. I shot, I killed him instantly. The other guy, I wounded. Now, the guy who was following me caught up. He had been in country quite a while. He didn't hesitate. He ran by me like the dinner bell was ringing. The guy was laying on the ground. He put his gun in his face and finished him off. That's what it was like. Another time, to show you how good the dog was, I'm walking through the jungle, and it's so thick, I wouldn't be able to see Cindy. And I'm going down a trail like this. And all of a sudden, a guy walks out right in front of me, 5 feet away, and turns and starts to walk the same direction I'm walking. He never sees us. So I wasn't going to hesitate with that. But as soon as he went down, another guy popped out. It was almost like the things at the arcade where they started jumping out in a trail in front of me, and then all of a sudden a firefight broke out. But this is a really good company. They brought their guys up. I heard the machine guns clacking away. No Americans got killed, and we did our business. But it didn't stay that way for long. Several months later, in a place called LZ East, a fire base on top of a hill so steep that when we pulled missions off of it, we would walk down, but it helicoptered back up. Several platoons of NBA zappers, or guerrillas, penetrated the perimeter of the base. Now, there was another dog team there. I was not there. He had warned the sergeant of guard that there was somebody down there. He didn't believe him, didn't want to shoot flares up. They got inside the perimeter. They had humped flamethrowers up this mountain, got inside the perimeter, and the NBA were unbelievably tough. It's the only way I can describe it. I hated them, don't get me wrong. But they started to mortar the base with their own people in the perimeter, because the first thing Americans do is they run into a bunker to hide from the mortars, where they were running behind them with satchel charges and a flamethrower, and they killed almost 20 guys that night. Things really started to change then. The NBA had moved in several regiments unknown to the Army, I guess, at that time. There's a book, which I'll show you, it's called Death Valley. It's about Hep Duck. And the subtitle of the book is The Summer Offensive of I Corps, and the Marines were involved in this too. It should have been called The Summer Slaughter, and that was for both sides. This is like a real war. No, not little jungle contacts. Now, I had been in a hospital a while, and I got flown out to another remote base, and I was going to walk down with a company that I had pulled a mission before, and I saw one NCO I remembered, and I asked them, "Where's Sergeant Smith?" "Dead." "So-and-so, wounded, dead, dead." In fact, we were going back into the valley to try to recover the bodies of some of these guys, where they were even down there 3 or 4 days. It was common in that place where guys would get ambushed. You don't want to lose more people to get somebody that's dead. That was the logic. Any Pittsburgh Steelers fans here? You know Rocky Blyer? He was there. He was in 196. He was in Hep Duck. We walked down, and before we left, it's one thing I'll never forget. We get off there, and all of these faces. Now, I had just turned 21, and I was looking at faces of people. They were 19. They looked like they were 14 to me. I was an old man. I had been in country almost a year, half, 9 months. And I could just tell these kids were scared. And they saw a warlock, and they go, "Oh, nice dog." And we pet him. "Too bad it's not warlock. We heard about warlock." I said, "Dude, this is warlock, man, you know." they're all smiling, you know, but they didn't know him. They didn't know me, but his reputation had started to spread within the brigade about guys not dying because we walked into something that didn't know was there. And you got to understand, 30 missions, guys died on the missions, but not because we walked into an ambush. Warlock would alert on an ambush. We would know where the enemy is. Like I told you, our orders were find the enemy, kill the enemy. Some of the best people I ever would ever know. Names are on the wall in Vietnam. Down in D.C. And I get a little emotional about that part. I actually know 17 names. There are 3 guys that graduated high school that died there. We walked down into the valley, and like I told you, it was normally jungle warfare. The first thing I saw was a hill which got named $1 Million Hill. There were helicopters on it that had been shot down. The battalion commander of one of the battalion had gotten killed. They shot his helicopter out of the sky. They had big anti-aircraft guns. They had strung barbed wire. I mean, this is stuff like you see in World War II movies. In Vietnam, you didn't see them. They shot at you, or you shot them, and they were gone. I saw something that to this day always blows my mind. There was a pile of empty salmon cans that was as big as this stage and about that high. That was their sea rations that they had used. So it had to be hundreds of guys eating there. And they weren't trying to hide from us like they normally did. Normally they would hide, and they were saying, hey guys, come on, let's get it on. And we were always outnumbered there. The only reason that we were able to do anything there is that we had air power and we had plenty of artillery. We walked into the valley, and if you haven't been to Vietnam or seen pictures, there's vast rice paddies in between the mountain valleys. This is up north now. Down south it's mostly rice paddies. But there's these big islands in the middle, and that's normally where the action happens. It's like jungle, and you go into those. You don't want to stay out in the open in the rice paddies. As we entered into the one area, there was just so much for the dog to smell. I had to be careful not to start screaming, you know, there's an ambush ahead, there's an ambush, because there were corpses, their corpses, which they always buried their dead. But as we got further in, Warlock starts to alert. So I go to this young kid behind me. I says, go get your sergeant. So the sergeant comes up and he goes, what's up? I said, the dog's alerting. We either got to go around, we got to call artillery in, got to recon with the machine guns, got to do something. So he leaves, he comes back. Captain says we have to keep going. I said, it's not happening. We keep going, we're going to die. It's suicide. So finally they tell me I have to go to the back of the column to talk to the captain. He wasn't coming up front. He wasn't stupid. Right? So here's this West Point grad. I get on West Point grads. But here I am, a 21-year-old, just turned 21-year-old wise ass from New Jersey. And I'm basically telling him he don't know what he's doing, and we're going to get killed if we're going to go there. He's going, well, you're going to go, or I'm going to shoot you where you stand, or I'll have you court-martialed. So I said, well, Mr. and Mrs. Van Allen would be very embarrassed if their son got shot as a coward. So I started walking up front, and some of those young faces were crying. They heard our discussion. They knew what was going to happen. I would have been crying too, but I was so pissed. That's the closest I ever came to shooting an American. I walked up front, and the kid that was going to be right behind me was really a good kid. I didn't know his name. I just met this company, except for a couple of the guys. And I said, you ever been in a firefight? He goes, no. Well, you're about to. Whatever you do, don't shoot me in the back by mistake. No, that's funny. It's not funny. It happens, especially in the jungle. You can't see what's ahead of you. So we started to go ahead a little further. Now Warlock I couldn't let him off leash. Was tugging so hard, and I was looking in the woods and growling, which I had never seen him before. And even been in a jungle combat, the rules are you never fire your weapon unless you have a target, because you give away the position. But as we got up this little bit of a rise, it was an open area. It was a perfect ambush site. Field of fire, 3 different directions for the bad guys. I decided to empty my weapon on automatic into an area where the dog was spawning. The response was instantaneous. The jungle in front of me exploded. They had claymore mines strung all over the place. They had a machine gun shooting right down the trail that I was walking on.
But they had pulled the trigger too soon. I wasn't in the kill zone. The machine gun, though, cut my leash in half. Get a picture of this. I had my dog on a leash, and a bullet literally cut it in half and didn't hit either one of us. It knocked us both off our feet. Well, I got wounded slightly, but I had perfect cut. I had like 3/4 of a foxhole, and they couldn't get at me, but I could hear their officers, I guess that's who it was, screaming at their guys. And Warlock was really pissed, because you gotta remember, he did not like to be released. They knew that they had missed, and they were trying to flank us. Well, I'm expecting, which normally happens when you get into a firefight, support comes up to your side. You hear the guys coming up, you know, they'll be shooting, they'll have them giving orders. This wasn't happening, but I was a little busy at the time. Twice, Warlock tried to run into the jungle, and I had to yell at him, no. And I kept shooting, then we were throwing grenades at each other, and then all of a sudden, Warlock just burst into the jungle behind me. I couldn't, you know, I was a little busy. And like 5 seconds later, he comes rolling out of the jungle, and he's got this NVA guy by the arm, right? And I mean, and the guy had apparently dropped his weapon. He was trying to flank me, he was trying to get behind me, and Warlock was trying to tear him up. And I couldn't stand up, so I rolled over, and to avoid shooting the dog, I put my gun right against the temple of this guy's head and pulled the trigger. And Warlock did that because it was over. Still, no help was coming. I didn't know the second guy in line, the young kid, had been killed. The third guy in line told everybody we were both dead. The West Point grad decided that it's time to pull back. So they pulled back. All of a sudden, a rocket hit the ground, probably 50 yards from me, smoke rocket. I was either fired from a helicopter or an airplane, I don't know. I'm a little busy. And up to that time, the only air support I'd ever been involved with were helicopter gunships and then puff at night. But the bad guys knew what it was. All of a sudden they're screaming, they stopped shooting at me. And I could hear them running through the brush going the other way. So now, it goes through my head. It's going to be an airstrike. So I get up, I start running with Warlock. And as we come down around the trail, we're just laying the kid clearly dead. But Warlock stopped. I'll never forget this. Stopped and started licking his face. So I decided I better check to make sure he's dead. He was clearly dead. Warlock did not want to go. You know, he's a smart animal. I could go on for 3 hours in that story, but I just decided, made those split-second decisions that could have cost me my life, but I decided I wasn't going to leave him. So I stripped all his gear off, threw his rifle into the jungle, and threw him over my shoulder. And it's funny, things go through your mind. In basic training, we were taught how to run 150 yards carrying a man of your own weight. So I guess that's why they taught us that. And I ran down the trail, and I got to where the jungle ended and the rice paddy was open, and I could see in the sky, there was a little dot with a phantom diving right at us. And as I was running out, he actually watched the bombs get released, and they went over our head and blew the jungle up behind us. We walked into the valley with over 100 men. They took us out in 4 helicopters, which is probably about 25 guys. That's how many were left before my 5 days were there. It was constant combat. It was just all the time. But it wasn't always like that. There were some company commanders who were really good. One guy named Robert Morris, from Tampa actually, is his 3rd tour. He was John Wayne reincarnated. Different valley. We were on top of a mountain, and the Americans would run little helicopters very low to the jungle and try to draw on fire. And then a mile behind them would be the Cobra gunships. Those little helicopters would drop smoke and they would go in and shoot the place up. Well, we were nearby across the valley, and we get quick orders, 2 platoons light gear across the valley and see what they're shooting up. And I had Warlock off leash because it was very open. And we're going through the valley, and all of a sudden he's going crazy chasing pigs and chickens. And I'm going, you're not back on Wyoming, dude. We got stuff to do, you know? And I did something I would never do. I kicked him. I was really tense because we know the bad guys are up there. And I kicked him and I made him walk behind me, yelling at him. And now we started walking up the mountain, and he suddenly came from behind me and started to do his thing. We got over the top of this mountain, it was a real big mountain, and we got on the other side. They were waiting for us. But he alerted, Captain Morris knew what to do, and we had a good day. It was our turn to turn the rice paddies red with their blood instead of ours. And one time I almost lost Warlock, and it wasn't a big combat situation. It was just him and I out in front of a company going down a rice paddy, and a little bit of jungle on the side, and a little hooch, and a rolling hills like this. And I see a guy bolt out of this hooch, must have saw us coming, with a weapon. And I couldn't get my rifle up quick enough to get a shot, but Warlock took off, and I couldn't get him back. And I was so worried that this guy was just going to turn and kill him, so I dropped my pack and started chasing him. And I finally get over the knoll, and there's Warlock standing over him, like this. The guy was dead. He had, apparently, I didn't see it, ran up, because the only bite mark he had around his neck, but when he slammed him to the ground, it must have broke his neck, because he had a broken neck. So, but despite all the war heroics, Warlock was still a dog. He was my buddy. I remember I did this dog for 18 months. When we went to the field, we slept together. I tied his leash around my ankle so he wouldn't wander off. I ran out of fire base one time, and dogs, you have dog owners here? Dogs like to get in a car, they like to travel. Well, in Vietnam, we didn't have cars. We had helicopters. Warlock loved to go in helicopters. So, get back to the fire base, and it was daytime sleep, trying to get some sleep. I didn't tie him up because we're on a base. And all of a sudden, a guy comes, dog guy, get up, get up. I'm reaching for my rifle, figuring something's wrong, you know? No, your dog. I said, what about my dog? And I looked down on the helicopter pad. He had jumped up in a helicopter, and every time the dog owner tried to pull him out, I said, oh, he's like, get over here, you know? Then the monsoon season comes, rains for 37 days in a row, and I don't know how many other days. And we had air mattresses. We had, you'll see our hotel when we're out in the field was your poncho, and they had an air mattress to lay on. So one night I wake up in the middle of the night, and my head and my shoulders are still on the air mattress, but my butt and my legs are in the mud. Guess who was in the rest of the air mattress? He had pushed me away. So I was like, and we're a team, man. I mean, we were close, believe me. So I decided, okay, we figured out how to get through that night, and the next day I told him my air mattress got a hole in it, send me another one. So I used the only guy in the Army to carry 2 air mattresses, one for me and one for my dog. When I got out of the hospital, I hadn't gone about 30 days, we had moved to a new base, and you'll see we didn't have regular dog kennels, because the Marines had one in Penang, and a rocket came in and killed all our dogs. The dogs just had a crate with a piece of plywood, and then we eventually built a sandbag wall around them. They would be chained up. So I get back to the base on my 21st birthday, and I got drunk, kind of, I mean, shot, burned, and stabbed by the time I'm 21. I might as well celebrate being alive, right? So I went out to the kennel and I passed out. The guys came out of the kennel area, whatever you want to call it. I woke up in the morning with Warlock in the kennel, because the guy said every time they tried to get me, he would growl at them, and I decided, screw it, buddy, you're dead. Now, he was an amazing dog. There are other good dogs. You'll see the pictures of some of my partners who also did a great job of saving lives. Unfortunately for Warlock, it didn't work out after I went home. I got to train the guy that was going to take him. He was an idiot, to put it mildly. He liked smoking dope more than he did carrying enough bullets. In 1971, on a mission, probably because this guy didn't bring enough water, he had a heat stroke. He medevaced him back, and he had to be put down. He was only 4 years old. The worst part is that he saved lives. He was so good. I go to reunions with these infantry companies. I get invited, and all we do is sit there and drink shots to Warlock, because those guys know that I'm alive, and a lot of them are alive because of what that dog did. So, but ready to do some slides? Probably saved more lives than I wanted to save mine once. So, that's Warlock over at the dog park. We're going the wrong way here. That was supposed to be the last slide. This picture was taken, this is the last photograph I have of Warlock. was taken at a studio on the beach in Chulai. As you can see the way I'm holding Warlock, the photographer was Vietnamese, and he was going to have him for it. Those eyes were unbelievable. He could stare a person to death when he was pissed. And they were doing, this is a napalm strike. We had gotten into contact. One of the guys got a little craving and stood up, and I reached to watch it. And one thing about napalm, not only does the fire kill you, but if you're too close, it sucks all the oxygen out of the air and people suffocate. That's Captain Morris. Not a tall guy, unbelievably great commander. And he lives in Cleveland now, and he's got a lot of health issues. That's what we call a quad 50, 450 calibers. In World War II, they were probably used for any aircraft guns. That was put on the fire base. And you can see a lot of these photographs are just taken with Instamatics. We didn't have great cameras, the guys. You didn't carry much to take photographs. That's Carlos Ancona. With his dog, Sam. Carlos was a Mexican immigrant who migrated to California specifically to get drafted. His family hated communists. While he was there, he got flown to Hawaii and became an American citizen. A great soldier and became a great American. That is an unexploded bomb. Now, Warlock didn't find that. I did. I walked down the trail and I almost had a heart attack. I was saying, if that thing is wired to go off, I'm dead. And that's an EOD guy that flew out to set it off. And it's funny, the infantry companies had their own guys to do it, but they wanted to bring an expert in. Our guy was going to put 4 fuses on it, like 20 minutes long each, or 15. This guy puts one on 5 minutes, because he had a helicopter flying around to take him back to the base for a cocktail hour or something. So I ran to a cemetery that was nearby where there were headstones, and I'll never forget this. And I'm looking at the headstone, and there was a SWAT stick on it, and I'm going, I didn't know the Nazis were here. Yeah, it's a Buddhist symbol. SWAT stick is a Buddhist symbol. Now, I talked about the guy behind you. These guys are from Charlie Company 2nd and the 1st. They all made it home, even though 2 of them are having serious problems with Agent Orange-related diseases. Dennis Silva, Larry Harper, and Rex Allen. Rex, the guy on the right. And Rex was ruthless. For Christmas, the family sent him a Bowie knife. He didn't think the bayonet was big enough for what he wanted. And that's a true story, by the way. Now, this is for you people from Massachusetts. I decided that this is a good photograph. That's a Claymore mine, the thing that says front towards the enemy. You know, because if you aim it toward yourself, you know what's going to happen. I'm a Yankee fan, so I got to have some fun here. That's the detonator on the right, and those are the 2 types of hand grenades. The little one on the bottom is a baseball grenade they developed because you can throw it a lot further. It isn't as powerful as the big one, but it still works. The Claymore mine, for those of you who don't know anything about it, has about 600 BBs on it. It's like a gigantic shotgun blast. That's the book I talked about, Death Valley. Warlock and I are mentioned in the book briefly. Summer Offensive, I course in August of '69. Now, let me go back. I remember I mentioned LZ East. That's what it looked like before the attack in June. Looks pretty nice, new sandbags. Go the other way. Not going to allow me. Okay, we'll show that later, but this is off one of the other fire bases. You can see the smoke in the background. The airstrikes are going on. We're looking down above Death Valley. This is, again, one of our big bunkers. It's steepness, and that is Death Valley there. Too many guys died there. Way too many. We should have just B-52'd into the Stone Ages, but there was a resettlement village there that were friendly, supposedly. I never met one, but that's what it looked like from above. And there's the river, which was always a great place for them to try to ambush you when you were crossing it. It was way steep, except during the monsoon. And this is another time, Warlock saved my life. Kind of forgot about it until I look at that. Normally way steep, it was monsoon season. I went to go across, I stepped off the embankment, and I never found the bottom, right? And he was dug in on the bank holding me up because he had his harness on, and finally the guys came and pulled me up. That's my buddy Rocky used to walk Bullet. This is at Baldy. And this is at Hawk Hill. Rocky was a carpenter by trade, so he did a lot of little things around the base. When we moved to Hawk Hill, which was really nice because it's brand new, our living quarters really got better. Another long pause. Down into the Valley of Death. That area there has been napalm. That's not shade. That's after the napalm had burned out. These are a couple, that's my commanding officer, Lieutenant Allen, the second one we had, and that's hard to guess, Lieutenant C. And does anybody recognize the pictures of that guy on the wall in the back? Anybody ever hear of Lieutenant William Calley? That's him. We had a different viewpoint about My Lai, by the way, being in the field. If you don't wear somebody's boots, it's hard to judge what happened there. Here we are goofing, that's me and Carlos, and I guess it was around New Year's, we had a couple days off. And yes, that's me. I always wonder what I was thinking about there. I got a butcher knife, a can of beer, I got my rosary around my neck, and a case of sea rations. It's different. We did have some light moments, it did happen. When flying first class here at Air 196, this is your view from the window. That's the door gunner's view. The M60 machine gun was the best weapon we had in Vietnam for an infantryman by far. Another area, hard pictures because these weren't professionally taken. We're getting ready to go on a convoy, and we always had a Jeep in front with machine guns. This is our new unit, that's me there. I think I weighed about 160 when I came home. I'm about 230 now. And I wasn't that skinny when I went over there. I had, climate wasn't a thing. And me and my Rocky and another guy were goofing. Now none of those weapons we ever took to the field. There's an M14, a grenade launcher, and Rocky's got the machine gun. And I'll give you the story how we got our nicknames. Now we're sandbagging. That's me in a truck, our new building. We had to put 14 layers of sandbags on these bunkers to prevent the rockets from B-40 rockets that would shoot at us. There we are, Rocky and Bullwinkle. Now we trained together at Fort Benning. We were out in bivouacking during the winter, so they issued those Korean War hats with the floppy things for cold weather. And we were standing in line to get paid, and we're 3 brand new officers right out of OCS. So the guy goes to me, "What army are you guys in, the Russian?" And I go, "No, we're dog handlers." So he looks at my boots, which hadn't been polished in 2 weeks at least. He goes, "The dogs do that to your boots?" I says, "No, lack of polish." So they realized they weren't going to get any respect from us, and we're going to do send it to Vietnam, you know. We're getting ready to go. So the guy goes, "Rocky and Bullwinkle." And then he made that comment, and that was in 1968, and that's what it was still called. He's a great guy. He lives in Conner, Wisconsin. Those are our showers, real top shelf, you know. 55-gallon drum, and then we stole that off of an old water tanker, an immersion heater. And those of you who've been in Southeast Asia, you know that during the monsoon season, it gets down in the 60s and you're freezing. That's Warlock when he's not happy. That's the crate there, yeah, you can see it. Now this is a happy face, because these slides are backwards for some reason, but that's okay. There's his happy face. And let me tell you what, he was a soldier though. You know, there's a new law now called the Clinton Law, where they repatriate dogs after their youthfulness is done. In Vietnam, out of 3,700 dogs that were deployed, 200 made it home. We gave about 600 to the Argonnes. They ate them. They didn't even have a veterinarian in the country that knew how to take care of a dog. So maybe Warlock was better off dying of heat stroke, I don't know. That's our kennel area. And you could see there wasn't much. We had just moved there. Eventually we put sandbag walls around it about 2 foot high in case we got mortared. And in that hut over there to the right, where the tires are piled up against, was our tool shed where we kept stuff. And believe it or not, a feral cat made her home in there. And it was funny, I said, why would she do that? Well, she knew the Vietnamese were never going to go in there around us because of the dogs. But every night when she'd be running in and out, the dogs would all start barking. But we left her alone because rats were always a problem on any of our bases. And I figured more cats the better. And you could see the airfield in the back and everything else. It's a training episode. With about 30 days to go, I got pulled out of the field and became the training NCO. So we're doing a little basic training there. That's Max. You could tell he wasn't a real shepherd, but he was a great dog. Yeah, happy dog's tail's always waggling, unless you were Vietnamese, of course. Now, in today's climate, this probably wouldn't be approved, but when we took prisoners, which wasn't often, by the way, by design, we wanted the information from them as quick as possible. They were tough guys, and even the toughest guy will give up when he doesn't want to tell you, when he knows a 75-pound shepherd's about ready to rip off his testicles. And that's what we're doing there. The guy that's over there chasing him is the interpreter, who actually is another Native American who learned the Vietnamese language really quick. So we use him instead of their own, because sometimes the interpreters we had, I wasn't sure what side they were on. And that Scout, he got part of his ear bit off in dog fights, and in the training at Fort Benning, fights were terrible. I mean, you had to be really careful. The male dogs hate each other. None of them are neutered, only the females, and there weren't many of those. So the male dogs were always on each other. That's Warlock and I. And anybody know what that thing is next to me, what they are? Termite hills. Oh, they're termite hills. They're a great place to hide behind during a firefight because they're very solid. Believe it or not, these are our girls we used to hire outside the base to come in and do our laundry. Some of them were really good people, you know. I didn't hate all of Vietnamese, just the ones that were in the jungle. That's LZ Baldy, the first base we're on. You can see the pile of rocks. When we got penetrated when I first got there, and they on the other side of the base, it was a huge base. It took 3 dog teams 2 days to find them all and get rid of them before we did. It was like ants, you know, they had gotten in. With like 300 guys attacked us at once. Aerial view on one of the airfields. And that's what a real helicopter is. Now I'm going to show you a Marine helicopter in a minute, and with the camouflage. Here you go. I got my best man when I got remarried years ago was a Marine. I always tell him that's how the Marines used to use camo. This is at Fort Benning, and Warlock's practicing getting in and out of a helicopter. So that's what it was. But yeah, that's Marine camo, I call it. And those are our sleeping quarters, the poncho strung out. 2 more guys from Charlie 1. Charlie 1. Now, if you look at, not the guy on top, that's a Starlight scope on an M16. I never had one. I never saw one. The little weapon the guy's holding on the bottom is a Car 15. It's a modified M16. It's about the size of an Uzi. It was a great close-up. I never had a problem jamming the stock extended. It wasn't real accurate long range, but to be honest with you, I never killed anybody over 50 yards, so it didn't matter. And you were able to fire one-handed. I would have the sling around my shoulder, and I could take it like this and just fire it, because the sling would get tight. And that's Warlock at Benning. And that's a picture that will be in the inside the community center once they put the shadow box on. So that's it, folks.
Brothers who are truly having a tough time. Agent Orange has really wreaked havoc on a lot of them, and PTSD, and some of the old wounds. But it's called The Agony of the Old Warrior. The wounds of past battles devour our bodies and spirit as we reflect on our time of war and civil unrest. There was no love in the jungle or in the airports upon our return. We questioned the judgments of Johnson, Nixon, Westmoreland, but we fought and died without question as young Americans. Our brothers wait for us at the wall, but the dead do not dream. Agent Orange
PTSD and lament time continue to reap the devil's due. We are haunted by the trail of death we carve through the jungles. We justify our actions by the most human of instincts, survival. Old warriors' minds and souls search the stars for a peace they will never find. Our thoughts drift through the cloud of war as we wait for our boat ride to the sea of eternity. Will it be heaven or hell for the old warrior? Perhaps there's a special place for my brothers of the blood, which we call ourselves. As long as you can taste the air of life, you will remember. We fought not to win, but for ourselves and each other. There's already too much grief for me to hide. My ignorance of God's way has always haunted me. The taste of near death has made us the persons we are today. But for us, there's only our legacy. Thank you.
Ken, on behalf of, I know better than that, on behalf of the veterans and the residents of Lomé Springs, here's a little thank you gift, and we really appreciate it. And he's going to stay.
Yes,
Right.
ma'am. Thank you.
So if you have more questions, please, thank you, Ted. Like most of you, or many of you that were in Vietnam, I was in high school when that all started, and went for years after. And I live in Vermont, and I remember people going to Canada to escape being drafted, and people burning flags. And seeing these pictures and seeing what many of you saw, I cannot understand why you were not recognized when you came back to the States. I'll never, ever understand that. As you know, my dad was a World War II veteran. He was one of Merrill's Marauders. And I know what they went through from some of the books I'm reading now. Young people today have no idea, no clue. And we need to teach our children, grandchildren. We need to let them know what their fathers, grandfathers, brothers, uncles did. So we really appreciate our veterans here at Lomé Springs and all veterans. Thank you. Okay, speaking of veterans, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 veterans that are related to you out here. They're your sons, grandsons, nieces, nephews. And we've done this so many years. You're very familiar. You've already started signing all the cards to these young men and women. And from what I understand, it means a lot to them. First off, I want to thank Jeanette Ormsby, who comes to me right away, and I know I bug you. I say, please give me their addresses. Tell me who is serving. She's not here today. They're away. But those beautifully crafted cards, one has been added for Bob O'Connor's grandson. It is not handcrafted like Jeanette does, but if you'll please sign it, I will see that Jeanette fixes it up and we'll send it to them. If you are here and you're relative, if you're related to one of these young people, please stand. Jill Bankus, United States Navy, Gordon Hogue's great niece, and Jeanette is here, Jeanette. Lance Corporal Mason J. Kavanaugh, United States Marine Corps, Gary Mary Wheelock's grandson. Corporal Daniel L. Fessenden, United States Marine Corps, Ron and Pam Wolf's grandson. And Corporal Ashley Fessenden, United States Marine Corps, Ron and Pam Wolf's grandson's wife. First class PO. Hey, help me. Petty officer, I know that. Darian Graham, United States Navy, Dina Watkins' cousin, Dean's standing in the back. Brian Millett, United States Army, Tony and Cheryl Hozak's son. Lance Corporal Evan O'Connor, United States Marine Corps, Bob O'Connor's grandson. Lieutenant Alex Slode, JAG Division, United States Army, Earl and Pam Lally's grandson. Here we go again, PO3, Brian Sterling. In this, yeah, stand right up. You should be very proud. United States Navy, Bill Sterling's grandson. Christopher Tanner, United States Air Force, Bruce and Joanne Tanner's nephew, and Clark and Judy Tanner's nephew. They're not here today. I'm surprised. Okay. Be sure to sign their cards. Jeanette Hope shared a little thing about a sack lunch, which I've taped there. It's a little bit something that I think you would enjoy reading. And just a second, I misplaced something. Sorry. At the end of this little story about the sack lunch, it says, of all the gifts you could give a Marine, soldier, sailor, airman, and others deployed in harm's way, prayer is the very best one. So today when you sign those cards, please pray for those young men and women. Some are here in the States and some are overseas. And pick up one of those little soldiers. Stick it on over your kitchen sink or at your dining room table, and every time you see that little soldier, you can think of those that are currently serving. Okay, we are going to, well actually I'm moving on. Okay, we're going to honor and thank these men right here. And just a second. First off, I want you to know that besides our speaker, there are so many other people trying to make this day special for you. It's such a joy to see you hold the American flag. And it's such a joy to see all those with the red and blue shirts surrounding you. It's because they love you. And we need to uphold our flag. I had a guest a few days ago, and we went around and we counted the American flag that is hanging on poles and staffs. Not the little garden flags, not the flags that are on your walls on the outside that are being made by people here in the park. There are 138 on staffs or poles. There is not, I say it every year, I know there is not another community anywhere that has as many American flags flying as this one does. We can be very proud of that. Our flag is front and center. The flags on the back of your chairs were given to you by our flag patrol. I asked them if they would like to be part of that. There was no question. There was no question. The flag patrol has provided the little flags on the back of your chairs for you and the veteran widows that are here. They've also provided funds to have you enjoy appetizers before we have our meal. So after we are finished and after the veteran photo, Judy Sweener would like those of you in the back especially to start going outside for appetizers so others can set up the tables in here. And those appetizers are from the Flag Patrol, to let you know that. Hometown America has helped with the funds for our lunch. They printed your programs. The little store right across the road is providing your lunch, and I understand it is delicious. And I want to thank Judy Sweener and all of the people who have worked tirelessly to put this all together. Also, Holly Gallagher had a chicken barbecue earlier, I can't remember now what date it was, but she gave me those funds so that I could use them as I needed, and some of those funds went to help pay for our lunch today. All you men and women who furnished pies that we're going to get to have for dessert, thank you. The men love pies, but I do too. I'll take that any day. I got to tell you, you all know, you've heard I'm from Vermont. I say it many times. I'm always looking for somebody to give you a little token gift and so forth. And I was just sitting one day. We only eat Cabot cheese. If any of you have ever heard of Cabot cheese, I promote it all the time, all the time, all the time. Cabot cheese is from Vermont. So I thought, I'm going to write them a note and tell them what I do and see if they would send me some cheese. Believe this or not, immediately I got back a note from Cabot Cheese in Cabot, Vermont, up near the Canadian border. I have a cooler up here with cheese snacks that you're all going to get to have. And all they ask is that if I let them know what you think of it, and I'm going to take a picture later, if you don't mind, when you're up here taking your picture, I'm going to give you each a picture of your, a piece of your cheese snack. If you could hold it up, I'm going to send them a picture. So you will probably be in some advertising for Cabot cheese. I can guarantee it. Probably a first for holding with all these veterans. Also, Home Depot, outside you have red potted petunias and white pentas. And each veteran can take either a petunia or a penta, and that is working with Brian Burns at Home Depot. Immediately, yes, they'll be there. So I want you to know that. Trustco Bank. Trustco Bank was here a few weeks ago by invitation of the Englands, and they brought little gifts. They provided lunch, and I asked them, could you do a little thing for, so in a gift bag that you have, and the bag was furnished by Hometown America, there is a little advertising gift from Trustco. So you're always gonna have something from Trustco. And again, yes. So many people. Bill Watson did the flags. Paul Bruno did the Vietnamese, Vietnam flag. Went to Brandon Special to get that. Because that was one that Bill wasn't able to.
Russ McLeod.